Welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey, he's Jacob, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. If you're a Minnesota sports fan, especially a Minnesota Vikings fan, click the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel. And today we're talking Minnesota Vikings, specifically Minnesota Vikings playoff scenarios, because the time has officially come, Liberta. It is pretty much December. The Minnesota Vikings are in the heat of the playoff race, sitting at 9-2. Philadelphia Eagles took care of the Green Bay Packers, so they are 10-1 still, and of course have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Vikings. So if the Vikings do want the number one seed and a first-round bye in the wild card weekend, the Eagles are going to have to lose at least two more games, and the Vikings would have to win out at that point. The Vikings have to be 2 games better than the Eagles at this point to get the 1 seed with 6 games remaining. So looking like the 2 seed is probably the most likely scenario here, unless the Vikings potentially fall apart and San Francisco jumps up to the 2 seed. But anyways, we can get into more of that stuff later on. We're just going to kind of go over some playoff scenarios. So as it currently sits right now, Liberta, the Vikings are the 2 seed, and they would play the number 7 seed Washington Commanders. How would you feel about that matchup if that was the matchup going into Wild Card weekend?
I feel pretty good about that. I mean, the Washington Commanders are starting Heineke right now, and they will be for the rest of the season. I'd almost say with certainty now. And it's just another one of those for 2022. You know, the Vikings feels like we play backup quarterbacks right and left, and Heineke's one of them. But the thing is that team is playing really hard, and I think rallies around that guy. I think he's just got this gravitational pull like all the good quarterbacks on most playoff teams do, you know, because like Heineke's not necessarily most talented, but like he's a guy that the players in the locker room respect and definitely will play for, I think. So I think that goes a long way. So I'd feel good about our chances. Obviously, we already have the head-to-head win over them, and what was that? I think week 9, and that was a good comeback win on the road, down 10 in the fourth quarter. So like that says a lot about our team and being able to, even if we play bad for 3 quarters, like we can figure it out in one of them and then we'll be fine. But so I feel mostly good. My only pause for concern, I guess, would probably just be that front 4, really the front 7 for Washington. I think they have all those first round picks on the defensive line that could really give us fits. Like our Ezra Cleveland had a 0.0 pass blocking grade against Washington, which is just obviously awful. And then if our offensive line is in any way, shape, or form banged up by the time we get to the playoffs, like that could really cause some problems for our offense and for Kirk if he's got pressure right down his throat the whole game, like he did against Dallas, for instance, too. So it's just that I think that's what worried me the most. I would hope our defense could put together a good enough performance where it's like our offense wouldn't have to go crazy or anything. So I feel mostly good, but yeah, I think the pass rush that Washington could bring would definitely be could be part of our downfall if we were to lose that game. I think it would be probably the biggest part. So I think that's probably my biggest concern there. Otherwise, I'd feel pretty good about that. What about you?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartely. I'm not scared of that Washington offense whatsoever, albeit the Vikings defense has not looked amazing the last couple of weeks here. So, I mean, it could be a lot different than that first game, that we played against them earlier in the season. But I don't know. I think, Washington, Taylor Heineke, like, am I a believer in them winning a playoff game? Not really.
Yeah, true.
But at the same time, it's like the Vikings, it's kind of looking like they're going to have to face a really good defense no matter what. I mean, you got Washington in the mix. The Giants defense has been pretty good this year. They're currently the 6 seed. Dallas is the 5 seed. Obviously, they smoked us, and their defense is really good.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco as a 3 seed has a really good defense. Tampa Bay's defense is still really good. I mean, there's good defenses literally all over in this playoff field. And then you got the Vikings, 31st ranked total defense this year. But so that's why, like, I want them to get the 1 seed so badly. I want that first round bye, and then the road to the Super Bowl runs through Minneapolis as long as we win the divisional. That would be fantastic. But at the way it's looking, it's probably going to be the 2 seed. And, if you get to the NFC Championship game, it's probably against Philly, in Philly, just like a rematch of 2017. But, like, as we're talking about, you got to take care of business in the wild card round first. And Washington, I think you have a pretty good chance of doing that. Taylor Heineke's inexperienced, for the most part. Just not a great offensive skilled team. I mean, they got Terry McLaurin, but that's kind of it. I mean, Brian Robinson's a pretty decent running back. But the other team that could potentially still get in there as a 7 seed is the Seattle Seahawks. They're kind of on the fringe right now. They've dropped their last couple games, but they were winning that division for a while there against San Francisco. San Francisco has surpassed them. But what do you make of the Seahawks if they are somehow our matchup, Roberta? Would you view this as the friendliest matchup?
I cautiously would say yes. I think I don't want to go down this path where I'm really beating the table to play certain teams. I feel like that would just come back to bite us. So I'd be cautiously optimistic about that matchup. I think the problems they would bring to us would be probably a whiteout there. Like I don't think we have a guy that could stop DK just because if assuming Gino could get him the ball, we certainly had our problems against the Cardinals and D Hop. Big physical receiver, just a highly talented player, and I think he had like 12 catches, a buck 60, and a touchdown or something. Like we had no answers for him, so I would kind of fear would get more of the same there. And then like defensively, I think we'd be fine. I think they have some playmakers, but their defense still isn't very good. I mean, they let Josh Jacobs just run all over him in this last game, so I would feel pretty good about hopefully establishing the run in that game, but yeah, I think, and then playing Gino in a playoff game, Gino's put together a very solid season so far, but I just have my I don't quite think that's real. I guess
Yeah.
you'd say like I don't think that would translate into playoff success. So that's another matchup I think I would feel even better about than playing the Commanders probably, just because I just think that I don't think they're quite real playoff team, I guess. I don't know. There's still a lot of football to be played, but some just feels off there too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they had a great start to the season. It might have been a little bit of a fluke.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of seeing over the last couple of weeks here, the defense is starting to deteriorate. I mean, they gave up a ton of points to the Raiders, who have been
Mhm.
horrible this year and lost in
Yeah.
overtime.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're kind of starting to see now that Seattle might not be a playoff team. They're kind of slipping down. Really, I think between Washington, Seattle, I think really the only other plausible team that could potentially be the 7 seed is the New York Giants,
Yeah.
where Washington somehow surpasses them for that 6 seed and the opportunity to play San Francisco. So, what do you think of the Giants, Bert? I know a lot of people thought maybe Brian Dable should be coach of the year. Obviously, they've lost a few games since then. Daniel Jones is having a pretty decent year. That defense is doing okay. They don't, besides like Saquon Barkley, they don't really have anybody that really sticks out to you. So, what do you make of the Giants? And would you be more worried about playing the Giants or the Commanders? Do you think?
It's a great question. I think there's a higher likelihood out there than maybe people are talking about right now of the Commanders passing the Giants, just because the Giants they started, I think it was 7-2, and now they've fallen back to are they 7-4, I want to
Seven
say.
and four, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're starting to come down the hill a little bit. I think they're even 6-1, so like they've lost 3 of the last 4 games, and I think it's kind of similar to Seattle, where I won't say the wheels are necessarily falling off, but it's just like I think they're showing their true colors now, what they are, and I think this is more what people expected. So I think I'd almost embrace maybe more playing the Giants than the Commanders, but I don't really know for sure because the Giants kind of I feel like in their wins this year they kind of win like the Titans do, where it's
Yeah.
like you don't see them coming into the game and winning it, and it's like that the other team they're playing is better, whoever that might be, and most of the time you just feel that way, and then they win it, and you just don't really know how. Like they kind of
Right.
muck it up, like their defense would put on a good game. Daniel Jones making up plays with his legs. Barkley might have a outstanding performance, and then they just win. But they do have 2 head-to-head matchups with the Commanders, and that's why I think the Commanders will actually pass them. So I don't know. I think the Giants are also a very realistic possibility in this on Wild Card Weekend, and I think I would like that. But we'll see how the Giants play. I think they also have a couple games against the Eagles too, so we'll see what they look like there too. Like if they can present problems for the best in the NFC, and then I might change my tune. So I think the Giants, Commanders, and Seahawks though I think they all fall in a pretty similar bin for me as far as just like I'm not gonna heavily rank one above the other. Like I'm not gonna want to play one way more than the other two. Really, I think
Yeah.
they're all pretty close. I think it's marginal differences at most. So I think I'm liking our chances in any of those matchups at this point.
I agree. And obviously, it'll be a home game, which will be fantastic. We do get to play the Giants coming up here on Christmas Eve. So that'll be a good test, kind of see
Mhm.
where that's at. That could be a
Mhm.
potential playoff matchup, obviously.
Yeah, true.
So,
Yeah, that's right. We play the Giants too. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting. You're right, though. I mean, if this was any other season, I'd be like, oh, yeah, sign me up for the Giants, the Commanders, or the Seahawks. Like,
I know.
it's kind of interesting that this is how it's played out. Obviously, the NFC still just really isn't that great this season. Tampa Bay Bucks are leading that division at 5-6 or something
It's
ridiculous.
gross.
So,
Yeah. Ugh.
I think they're pretty well locked into like that 4 seed, unless
Yeah.
Atlanta maybe comes back and wins that division. But um, just quickly before we take off here, second round matchup. I mean, we're the 2 seeds. San Fran's most likely the 3. Are you shaking in your boots a little bit, worrying about having to play that San Francisco defense?
I would say yes. I think we're getting to the point to add on to this conversation of where what bins these teams fall into. I think we're in a bin now where there's 4 real contenders in the NFC with I'd say the Eagles, obviously. Then I would consider us one of those teams. I definitely consider the Niners, and I definitely consider the Cowboys. I think after
Yep.
that, it's a little more like they could win a playoff game, but probably not more than that. So, yeah, I'd say your divisional matchup, if it gets down to the 4 teams that I think it will with the Eagles, Cowboys, and then us and the Niners, like then I would like you're getting an easy game in any of those matchups. So I
Yeah.
would worry about not only the Niners but the Cowboys too. So I'd say you definitely have to put your best foot forward and hope the defense isn't a total sieve. And because I mean the Niners have all sorts of playmakers. They got one at every position group from the running backs and the McCaffrey to the wide receivers with Debo and Ayuk even too.
Yeah.
And we got he's really coming into his own this year, and then Kittle obviously a tight end can be a beast when they really need him to. So it just all hinges on Jimmy G. Like what kind of Jimmy G game you're going to get if he's going to be able to put the ball in those guys' hands, then it's probably going to be a long day for us. But if he's having one of those days where he's going to throw a couple picks, I think our defense definitely has been good at pouncing on opportunities like that this year. So I'd feel pretty good about that. So it really would come down to how he's playing at that point in a couple months here. So I would worry about it. And their defense, they haven't allowed any second half points since week 7 or something ridiculous
Yeah.
like that. That definitely would definitely leave me a little bit worried about what our offense could do in that matchup. But because I know we're definitely susceptible to going into those scoring lulls where
Mhm.
our defense on the field for a while, and that's obviously not good because our defense is it's just not it. So
Right.
I would say that would definitely leave me thinking I would say we're underdogs going into a game right now with the Niners, even on home field. So I think that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and I agree. And like you mentioned, assuming like Dallas probably wins their first round matchup against Tampa Bay.
Yep.
So it'd be Dallas, Philly, us, and San Fran. That's just assuming all the favorites win. There could be
Yeah.
upsets that kind of change
Absolutely.
the course of what happens. But um, yeah, I wouldn't like a matchup with any of those teams. Obviously, Dallas smoked us. I think Dallas is still probably maybe our best matchup out of those 3 remaining
Probably.
teams.
Probably.
Just because of how aggressive San Fran is on both sides of the ball at the line of
Yeah.
scrimmage. But and obviously Philly, like we saw it in that Packers game, like that run game is just insane. The stuff they can do with Jalen Hurts and the read option, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like he's even passing a ton. They're just running the crap out of the ball. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, you can only take it one game at a time, and we still have 6 games before we even get there, and a lot can change. So
Yeah, true.
um, just looking at how it lays out right now, though, it's kind of interesting to look at these different scenarios. Any other final thoughts from you before we take off here, just about the Vikings playoff scenarios?
Yeah, in the most ideal world, it would be winning out here and the Eagles dropping a couple games like the Titans and the Cowboys or something like that. Or maybe they lose one of their 2 games against the Giants they have remaining. And then us climbing to that one spot, and then you just avoid wild card weekend completely, and that's one less game you have to win, which would be great. And
Yeah,
a week of rest for anybody who's has some nagging injuries going into the playoffs when we get there. And then if you're really lucky, then you get a team like, let's say, the Commanders or Giants or something that steal a wild card game that first weekend against, like, let's say an Eagles team or a Niners team or something, and then you get them, and then you got, like, in the other divisional would be, like, for instance, um, it would be the Eagles or the Niners against the Cowboys or something. So, like, you completely avoid them until an NFC Championship game like that.
Right.
That would be that probably the most perfect world, but obviously that there's a lot that would happen to get to that point. But I think that's, if I had to lay out the most ideal possible scenario for us, I think it would have to be that.
Yeah, and I think the Vikings really should try to win out. I think it's plausible. I mean, we got Jets at home, should be a win against, Mike White, the third string quarterback. But I mean, he looked pretty good against the Bears, but it is the Bears. You get Detroit on the road, you get the Colts at home, you get the Giants at home. I mean, none of those are scary opponents. And then you got Green Bay at Lambeau. Who knows if Rodgers will even be playing with his rib and thumb injuries. And then you got the Bears on the road to end the season. Obviously, Chicago's never been a friendly place for us to play, but it's the last game of the season. Are the Bears really going to be playing for anything? Are they going to be kind of wanting that better draft pick? So, I mean, there's 6 games left, and they're all very winnable games, I think, at this point, just based on how well the Vikings have played to this point. So I think winning out should definitely be the goal. And then, like you said, hopefully you get a little lucky. Hopefully a couple of these teams can knock off the Eagles where we could surpass them. But I think it's going to be tough at this point to be 2 games better than the Eagles, I think, down the stretch, just because I would imagine the Vikings probably drop at least one of these games out of the remaining 6. But it's just the way football is any given Sunday. So
yeah, exactly.
That will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and feel free to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. You can give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you make of the Vikings' potential playoff scenarios? Is there an opponent you'd rather face? Is there an opponent you want no part of? And what do you think the Vikings' odds are of jumping the Eagles for the 1 seed? So let us know your thoughts below. And until next time, thanks for watching.